Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Senior Bowl going on in Mobile this week. Jeff Ireland was there, part of the Saints contingent, and you might imagine a big part of the conversation is about the vacant OC job. So not only who it's going to be, and I don't know that Jeff Ireland has that answer, but as you're going through player and talent evaluations and trying to put together your offseason, how much does not having an offensive coordinator in place impact all of that? So that was part of the conversation today. As a matter of fact, Jeff Ireland was asked, do your evaluations, your player evaluations change based on who the offensive coordinator is?
We do. We tailor it to what he's looking for. There may be an offensive blocking run scheme that we're looking at, and that usually generates a different type of player that we're looking for, maybe a little bit more athletic versus a bulky guy in the middle. So receivers change, tight ends change, whether we're playing with a fullback or not. So, yeah, it can definitely change a little bit of the landscape of what kind of player we're looking for, because we want it to be we want that player to schematically fit what we're doing on offense. So, absolutely, just like we do on defense.
Makes a lot of sense. But I would also say that only it doesn't matter in your evaluation. It matters when it comes time to determine who you're going to draft, right? You're still going to be evaluating these players and what they do well. And then when your offensive coordinator is in place, you can make a determination if that player, based on your evaluation, fits what that offensive coordinator is looking to do. That was a great response, by the way, by Jeff Ireland. Makes a lot of sense. Do you want a fullback? What type of blockers do you want? And he was also asked, does not having a coordinator in place right now impact your evaluations?
Not necessarily. We're not right there yet in our process. Right now, we're still in a really, a gathering information mode. We are trimming the fat from in some cases, but we're ready to strike. Whether we understand what the kind of players that they are, and so when a player doesn't fit, well, he just kind of goes into a different box of maybe not fitting exactly what the offensive coordinator is looking for, and so maybe this player does, and so that's kind of how we go about it.
So they're at the Senior Bowl, and we know the Saints have feasted on the Senior Bowl over the years. They love to draft players that participated in the Senior Bowl. Most recently was Trevor Penning, who had a great week there in Mobile, and the Saints took him in round one, and we know that has not gone well. I would argue that for me, the Saints' biggest need this year is on the offensive line. I understand Michael Thomas could become a free agent and he could be done in New Orleans. I think he probably is done in New Orleans. But knowing you've got Olave and Rashid Shaheed and other pass catchers, I wouldn't put receiver ahead of offensive line, because you got a bargain basement deal with James Hurst, but he's not your franchise left tackle. Andrews Pete is likely done in New Orleans, and you haven't maximized Trevor Penning or gotten anything out of Trevor Penning. So I would put offensive line as my number one need in this draft. So Ireland was asked about the need on offensive line, in particular where they stand with guys like Trevor Penning and Nick Saldiveri, who they drafted a year ago.
Well, I think you should add young offensive linemen pretty much every year. So, with Trevor and Nick in particular, I think they're really young, developing, high upside players that we're looking forward to, but right now we wish we had a little bit more information on both of them. We wish you could say, hey, these guys, we can plug them in and start. Well, I don't know, we can say that right now. What we do feel about both those players is that they should compete to start and give us really good depth if they don't get there, but we feel like they should be able to compete to start.
It's so interesting watching these highlights from Trevor Penning. If you're watching with us, these are highlights from Penning in the Senior Bowl. And this is what made him so appealing as a left tackle, going against guys from Ohio State and top-tier college football programs, and just bullied them. So, I was so high on Trevor Penning because even if he didn't work out at tackle, I figured he was mean enough to move inside and be a really good, mauler of an interior player, kind of in the way that Carl Nix was. So the fact that they've got nothing out of him has been so surprising, but Ireland did follow up on Trevor Penning. Here was a little more from Jeff Ireland on Trevor Penning.
Well, he's had one offseason. He's from a small school. We feel really good about Trevor. there's some things that he obviously needs to work at, and he knows what those things are. I do feel like there's too good of an athlete, too strong of a player, too many things that he does well that he shouldn't end up developing into a good player. Now, whether that's inside or outside, right or left, those are all going to be determined by his coach. And but I think we've got a good plan and making sure we get the upside out of it.
They did add, real quick, one more from with the question here on Penning.
Do you see him as a player that could potentially shift inside in some form?
It's really not my decision, but yeah, I do think he could.
The question was, could Trevor Penning shift inside? And that's the right answer by Jeff Ireland. Say it's not my decision, but he could. And you would hope he could. I mean, listen, you drafted Andrus Peat with the thought of him being your right tackle, and it didn't work out. He moved in and played guard for a lot of years. He wasn't an all-pro caliber player, but he was a starting caliber player in the league. You drafted Cesar Ruiz as a center, but you had Eric McCoy entrenched there, and so he's played guard. And he hasn't been nearly as effective at guard as he might have been at center, but he's been a durable, available starting caliber player in the NFL. Not a great player, but a starting caliber player. Could you get that out of Trevor Penning? Yes. Now, when you use a first-round pick on someone, you expect them to be a starter day one. They should be a starter. You are drafting a starter when you use a first-round pick. And that hasn't manifested for Trevor Penning, but you got to find a way to maximize it. Maybe he could be a guard. Maybe this is a draft where you take your left tackle at 14 and Penning becomes your left guard, and that becomes the left side of your line for the next half decade. You hope that's the way that this could play out. But in all, we'll see how it does play out. So one more from Jeff Ireland. Can you play number 3, please? It was just a general thought on how this week goes with the Senior Bowl and how, this week could change the way they view a player.
Well, I always say to the players, it's our first opportunity to get to know the player, get to know the person. We know him as a player on the tape, and then getting up close and personal with his background and getting a little bit deeper into the makeup of what we're looking for in our locker room. So it does change. It does change from certain aspects of it. We get to learn how a guy learns, how he understands football. That football knowledge and base is extremely important to us as well. So that's how grades change in some cases.
Saints love the Senior Bowl. I mean, they draft Senior Bowl players. I mean, Nick Saldiveri, a year ago out of Old Dominion was a guy that they liked. Trevor Penning was at the Senior Bowl. So chances are they're going to see someone this week in Mobile that they like, that they pick in the draft coming up this spring. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.